Okay, I'm continuing my reading, and once again I am reading the standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I am doing this in chronological order. The standard works consist of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. Right now we are reading in the book of Genesis. This will be chapter 22. Abraham commanded to sacrifice Isaac his son. Both father and son yield to the will of God. Abraham's seed shall be as the stars and the sand in number. In his seed all nations shall be blessed. Rebekah is born to Bethuel. Okay. Now, in this chapter, there are no Joseph Smith translations, and for those who don't know, the Joseph Smith translation is an inspired revision or translation of the Bible, restoring portions that were lost through the years. This chapter does not contain any such translations, so let us just get into it. It's a fairly famous story, so I don't know how much commentary I will put on it. Here we go. Verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham, and said unto him, Abraham. And he said, Behold, here am I. Or, behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering unto me of the mountains, which I will tell thee of. Let's pause there a minute. First, it says God did tempt Abraham. The alternate Hebrew translation is test or prove. God's testing Abraham to see how he will react. And so let us continue now. That's the only thing I wanted to say there. Verse 3. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up, and went unto the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes, and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both of them together. Okay, a couple of notes here. The parallels of this story to the atonement of Christ are very striking. So, just a couple of things we'll note here. First, Isaac, despite what some people think, and as is depicted in some media, Isaac was in his early 30s at this time. This is confirmed in the apocryphal work of the Book of Jasher. But it's fairly well understood in the church that Isaac was in his early 30s. Christ was 33 when he was crucified. In addition, Moriah, this mountain that they're heading to, is the peak next to Golgotha, where Jesus was crucified. Then we have the final path, going up the mountain to do the sacrifice. Who is carrying the wood? Isaac, who is going to be the sacrifice, carries the wood himself. They take it off the mule, put it on Isaac. Christ carried his own cross. You note these parallels here. So now, verse 7. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went, both of them together. And they came to the place which God had told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. So here we go. This is where it talks about Abraham and Isaac yielding to the will of God. Isaac is carrying the wood, and he's saying, wait a minute, where's the sacrifice? And Abraham says God will provide. And Isaac, I do believe Isaac knew what was going on. At that point, Isaac realized, okay, we know what's going on. And it says Abraham bound Isaac on the altar. There's no indication that Isaac fought back. Isaac trusted Abraham, and Abraham trusted God. And so they both yielded. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes, and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went, and took the ram, and offered him up for his burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah-Jireh, as it is said to this day, In the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. Jehovah-Jireh means the Lord will see or provide. So, this is a very famous story, and again, notice those striking parallels. We also have the replacement of Isaac with the ram, which can be seen as the ram representing Christ, replacing us, so that we don't have to suffer the justice of God because Christ is being offered in our place. I will also note, he talks about thine only son. He says it twice. Withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. Ishmael was still Abraham's son, but Isaac was the only son of Sarah. So it's not that Abraham disowned Ishmael. Ishmael still was his son and would still inherit a portion of Abraham's goods at Abraham's death. But Isaac was his only son by Sarah. Now, we continue on, verse 15. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heaven the second time, and said, By myself have I sworn, saith the Lord, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed, as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. Okay, there's a little bit more in the chapter, but let us talk about this a little bit more. Going back to being the only son. This is again a parallel to Christ, who is the only begotten of the Father. We are all the children of the Father, but only Christ was born of the Father in the flesh. And in like manner, there are other children of Abraham, but only Isaac was born to Sarah. Another parallel. Now, we also have this repetition of the two blessings or covenant parts of the covenant of Abraham. First, that his posterity would be as the sands of the seashore, or as the stars in number, and that through him all the nations of the earth would be blessed. I think this is the third time that these blessings are stated in Genesis. Very important things to keep in mind. It is through the priesthood that all the earth is blessed. That through the priesthood, all people can gain the ordinances of salvation, as well as through Christ, who is a descendant of Abraham. Both of these things are how Abraham and his family bless all nations. How his family is in number as the stars or as the sands is through his exaltation, when he becomes a exalted man and is able to have spirit children of his own endlessly throughout eternity. That is how that promise is fulfilled. But let us read these last few verses here. In verse 20. And it came to pass after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, Behold, Milcah, she hath also borne children unto thy brother Nahor, Huz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Chesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Jidlaph, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begat Rebekah. These 8 Milcah did bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother, and his concubine, whose name was Rumah. She bare also Teba, and Gaham, and Thahash, and Maacah. That is the end. The reason we have this here is to show that Rebekah, who we will see in later chapters, is the one to marry Isaac. This is to kind of prove Rebekah's lineage, to prove that she is of the family that could have the priesthood. She is a descendant of Nahor, who is Abraham's brother. Milcah is Sarah's sister. So Bethuel is the son of Nahor, therefore he is the cousin of Isaac. And therefore Isaac marrying Rebekah, he is marrying his first cousin once removed. But that is why this is here. This is to give Rebekah's genealogy to prove her lineage. I'm going to leave that here, and I will see you in the next one.